Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Mates video. I am Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, lovely to see you. On today's video, we've got another mini review, and that's of a film. I think that released in the back half of 2020, didn't it?
I
Yeah.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a slightly overdue review on the channel again, and this time it's of the film Freaky as well. So I'm just going to pass over to Callum to explain more about the themes of the film and what we'll be reviewing, spoiler and non-spoiler wise, if we're going to do that or just full spoilers. So yeah, off to you, man.
So the overall story is sort of a blend of horror and comedy, which is sort of the standard Blumhouse style, and this involves a Freaky Friday type body switch between a murderer and his victim, or his attempted victim, and then chaos ensues.
It
Let's just
does.
say.
It absolutely
I
does.
feel like this is an old enough movie that we can just plow into it. Like I think we're going to be talking about this for a long time. I don't really understand why, but I have more notes than I did for The Godfather. Which confused me because this film's
We're going in depth in this
maybe
shit.
maybe an hour and 40. But there just seems to be a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's one of those movies. There's a lot going on, but yeah, as Callum said, full spoilers for this review. And yeah, just before we kick off, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts on Freaky down below if you've seen it. We'd love to hear them. And of course, our email is always there: moviematespodcast@gmail.com, and as well timecodes are in the description. So, if you want to start us off, man, with any opening remarks you had about the film.
Could I very quickly grab some water?
Yes,
Just
of course you can.
quickly.
Of
Yeah.
course.
So I wanted to first mention the kind of film that this is, which is, of course, as I mentioned before, a horror comedy, a very natural blend, I think. And I think audiences love something familiar but mixed with something new, and I think like that's the winning formula. So as soon as I heard the concept, I immediately imagined this to be a massive success, which financially not so much, but I think critically this is a winner.
Completely. I think you're right. I think the strength of these sort of like, Happy Death Day type films as well. It's of course a very similar production to this. I think it's the fact that they don't take themselves too seriously. Like I think one of the drawbacks of a lot of horror films is that they take themselves way too seriously. And I think in this one here specifically, I think the tone is spot on. It's a perfect mix of like comedy and horror, and obviously the cast as well. I think in these kind of type of films, it's really important to cast actors who can do a blend of the two. And I think Vince Vaughn smashes it, as well as Catherine Newton as well, surprisingly.
Mm. Yes, which we will talk about. But yeah, I really love what Blumhouse does. Traditional horror isn't one of my favorite genres, and I don't think it's one of yours. I think you don't appreciate the scares too much,
Yeah,
and
not a big
I don't
fan.
think that scares alone can really sustain a narrative. So I think the injection of comedy lifts any project and entertainment value for me. The only
Mhm.
issue in these kind of films, Happy Death Day to You, and this film, is that sometimes the film doesn't really know where the line is with the comedy. I feel like they just go a bit too far, and that there are a couple of instances which we will talk about where I was like, you should have stopped that joke 30 seconds before it ended. Like it went on too long, and now I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think in this film as well, maybe one of the downfalls of it is, and there's not many, to be fair, it's a very good film, but I think there's a lot of characters who are cliche that you could imagine could be in any other horror comedy, to be honest. There's the classic, best friend dynamic and things like that. And there's the classic teenage girl scenario, and there's the classic jocks who wear sort of like those American sort of I don't really know what they call it, like sorority jackets.
Jackets.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and there's a lot of cliches in there, and I think maybe I'm not sure if that is intentional with the film because it's kind of poking fun at that, but it didn't do it enough to me to suggest otherwise. So I think it is on the character basis a little bit cliche.
Yeah, because I do feel like them just announcing in the film, being like, "Wow, what a cliche we are." I'm like, yeah, but you're still doing it. Like, if you're
Yeah,
really
yeah.
opposed to the cliche, consciously don't do it. But yeah, that's definitely a fair point. And the film opens with sort of a discussion of whether the Blissfield butcher, is real or whether he's not. Because a lot of the town seems to consider him to be a myth. Either a murder is real or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Either there were murders that occurred and there's a murderer, or there didn't. I really don't feel like you can act like a murderer is a myth. Maybe
Maybe
you know
100 years ago, maybe with Jack the Ripper, but not today when there's like
yeah.
like there's CCTV and stuff everywhere. Like surely someone's caught on to this guy.
Yeah, and when people sort of like tenuously link crimes together, sometimes that's in question. But if they're like, oh yeah, one night at homecoming, he just killed a bunch of people. There's
Yeah,
going to be witnesses. There's going to be police reports. There's going to be
of
dead
course.
people. Like
Forensic
those crimes will
evidence
be
as well.
reported.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get how in some films, when you have the ghost of a serial killer that turns up unexpectedly, that's sort of fair enough. But a known killer that disappeared should still be cause for concern for the whole town, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And we've sort of mentioned the opening scene there, bud. I mean, some the deaths in this film is
Oh,
they're so well done. They're fantastic. I mean, the opening scene alone, there's like death by wine bottle down the throat. There's a toilet seat one, and then there's like a tennis racket one. The tennis racket one has to be my favorite out of those three because Vince Vaughn's literally just snaps it and then just sticks it between a guy's head. It is brutal. But I mean, I actually love the action here. It's actually so well done, so gory, but it's really done right. It doesn't overdo it either.
yeah, I think for me the wine bottle is probably my favorite, and for a name like the Butcher, he seems to kill with a lot more finesse than expected. Like the wine bottle down the throat, I think is one of the most inventive horror kills I've ever seen,
Yeah.
and like the whole thing was a really smart opener. But I would have liked to have seen his face from the beginning because I was worried that we were never actually going to see Vince Vaughn do any butchering, which we don't really. We see Catherine Newton as his character do a lot of murders, but Vince Vaughn himself mask off. We don't really get to see like the
Yeah.
killer instinct in his eyes. I think he maybe does one kill, like the very final one of the opening sequence. But I just would have liked maybe
Yeah.
him minus the mask. But do you think that's for surprise for audience members who didn't know Vince Vaughn was in this? So they're like, it's the comedy guy
Yeah,
killing people.
I don't know. I don't know. Like I think Vince Vaughn's character really it's hard to say character because he's kind of two at the same time. I think Vince Vaughn, you know, as an entity really thrives in this type of film. You know what I mean? Like I really just can't take him seriously, to be honest. But I think that's a credit to him because like he's such a comedic actor. He's one of my favorite comedic actors, if not my favorite. And I think I would have actually liked to see him more in the serial killer persona, just because I actually think that character is a lot more interesting than Catherine Newton's Millie. To be honest with you, I think I would have liked to hear a
Hmm.
backstory a bit more about that and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know.
But I was just wondering, which do you think is the more like we can talk about who does a better job of portraying the other, but which do you think is actually the harder job? Do you think playing the killer or the introvert? Because I actually think that the introvert is a more difficult role to play because you have to play it without strain into cringe, and I think Catherine Newton manages to balance it very well. But I think that can very easily be like, oh, I'm just a shy girl. I have multiple friends, but I can't talk to the hot boy in my woodshop class.
Yeah,
Like I have to send him a creepy poem through the
yeah.
locker. I think that I was never like, oh, I'm kind of, I was never sort of off put by her
Mhm.
performance, which
No,
I
I
think is a
agree.
testament to her.
I
Whereas
think yeah.
Vince Vaughn, there are a lot of sort of like weird moments where you're
There's
kind of like
a lot of cringe.
creasing a bit,
Yeah,
but I
there
suppose
is.
that,
Yeah.
that that's just yeah, but that's just sort of an effect of the fact that he is a middle-aged man playing a teenage girl. So
I
that
know, and
there are more obstacles there
there
to your
is,
performance.
there is, and there's a lot of great scenes that of comedy that involve Vince Vaughn, and the movie I think tries to balance comedy with sort of like emotion as well. There's a scene particularly in like a supermarket or superstore like a changing room, and it really felt out of place to me. It kind of felt like the filmmakers needed like an emotional scene, so they just had a scene that just wouldn't make sense in real life. Do you know what I mean? That being said, I
Mm.
think that the scene was executed well. It just didn't fit in this movie, for me anyway.
Yeah, because I suppose we need to learn a bit of backstory about her dad to give some semblance of depth to the character,
Yeah,
and to make the mom not just
that's true.
another cliche. So I suppose we needed a bit of emotion, but yeah, maybe the scene was a bit extended and it was a bit out of place. But I agree, well executed.
Hmm.
I think it's difficult to assess who does the better impersonation, of the other,
It
as we
is,
don't we
yeah.
don't really know or see, much of both characters pre the transference. We know a little bit more about Millie, but the only thing that we know about the butcher, even by the end, is that he's just a cold blooded killer. We don't even know his name. We don't know anything about him other than he probably does drugs.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And I think that's part of that like sort of mysticism and the unknown factor of his character. I think is quite good. But like I said, I would have really liked to see a bit more about his backstory. And if this film is going to have a sequel, it really needs to have Vince Vaughn for me. It really does. Like I really think, without that character, it doesn't become as interesting. I would like to see maybe a prequel about his story or something like that, or I don't know, but I don't know. I thought Vince Vaughn was just the highlight here for me, and Catherine Newton's still great, but Vince Vaughn really stole the show, I think, for me.
Hmm. And one of my favorite moments in the film is that, right after they've been switched, and the butcher goes into school wearing Millie's body. The teacher, tells her that she's not going to amount to anything. And I love that, somebody's assessment of whether someone will make something of themselves is, are they good at wood shop?
How they get it exactly? It's a universal talent, isn't it? I mean, we all remember back in technology class for us, I absolutely hated like woodwork and stuff like that. I was awful at it. But yeah, like
We actually we didn't become friends until I think after we both dropped technology. So I don't know. Tell me your skills or lack
there
thereof.
none. The criteria is none for that. Like I hated technology back in the day. Like it seems so interesting when you go into it as first year, but it's not for me whatsoever. I hated it. But yeah, DIY is like, oh god, don't even. I hate DIY. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the teacher in this film was just an asshole. So his death was so good. It was brilliant. It was
I
brutal.
mean, yeah, he's needlessly aggressive. He's clearly using his power to get kicks, but maybe
He
not a
shouldn't
saw
die.
to the
Yeah,
head,
yeah, maybe, yeah, he shouldn't have
type
died.
kind of
He
guy.
didn't deserve to die.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but he was. It was certainly an
and
intense scene.
his death. Yeah, his death is sort of what led me to ask you this question. I know that you don't love horror films, but when you do sit down and watch one, do you prefer gory or not gory?
I gore is not really a thing that affects me. It's more jump scares that affect me, to be honest. But I can
Mm,
take it or leave it. I'm absolutely fine with it. I think some of my favorite horror films are films like Get Out, where it's not necessarily about the gore specifically. It's just about
mm,
like the sense of sort of suspense and the tension within the film. And sort of I think films, we've reviewed The Omen on the channel before. It's one of my favorites as well because it doesn't necessarily go full
yeah.
gory. It's just so fucking creepy. Do you know what I mean? It without being
Hmm.
gory. The Exorcist is actually the opposite, where it's really kind of gory and a use of prosthetics there, but it works as well. So I mean, it's not. It's for me. I can't. I struggle to narrow it down to gory and non-gory, personally. But films like Get Out and that really build a sense of tension and stuff I can really appreciate. What about yourself?
Yeah, if I had to choose like a tension builder over like a slasher film, I'd choose the kind of Get Out Omen tension builder. But if I had to watch a slasher film and it was like either they shy away from showing blood or it's like the bloodiest thing I've ever seen, like I'm gonna want more blood. You
Yeah.
know, I like when it
Yeah.
comes to slasher films, bloodier the better.
What was the Saw film that we watched a few years ago? Do you remember that?
It was Jigsaw.
Jigsaw. It was really good. It was a good slasher film. I quite enjoyed that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were maybe a bit let down by the fact that we hadn't seen the previous six or
Six
seven.
or seven. Yeah,
We're just
I
like,
know. I
what's
know.
going on here?
Yeah.
It was like it was set after the death of of the main character. And we're just like, all right, we've
Yeah. We were just like,
we've
yeah,
we've,
what's
we've
going
we've not
on?
done this right.
Yeah, I know.
And I think that Catherine Newton, I have previously judged her on her performance in Pokemon Detective Pikachu. Is that what the film's called?
I
Yeah,
think
it
so.
is.
Yeah.
I think. And I mean, that's a dreadful performance, but I mean, that may have been what the director asked for because I can't believe that that's down to Catherine Newton because of how good she is here. I think she plays a silent killer expertly, and I think she's convincingly menacing. So
Agreed.
it can't have been up to her,
Yeah, I hope it
that
isn't. I don't
performance.
think it is, but I'm excited for her to appear in Ant-Man Quantumania, to be honest. I think that's promising given her performance in this one. Like she's really good here. And like you said, it's sort of I think both Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton do equally well, to be honest, in terms of who does it better. I think they're really, really strong. And Vince Vaughn's like an expert actor. He's been on a lot of successful films, and for her Catherine Newton to compete with that, I think's really fantastic for her.
And you
But
say
yeah,
he's sort of one of your more so one of your favorite comedic actors.
absolutely,
For me,
yeah.
this is the only film I've ever seen him in that I actually find him funny. I think this is maybe only the third performance I've seen of his. I've seen Delivery Man and The Lost World Jurassic Park. Like, what else have you seen him in that you sort of
I've
appreciated
seen
his performance?
obviously Jurassic Park. Sorry, Jurassic World. No, it is Jurassic Park, isn't it? Jurassic Park.
It's
Uh,
the Lost World
Lost
Jurassic
World,
Park.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen him in Hacksaw Ridge. Love him in that. seen
Oh
him.
yeah, of course.
He's really good there, and he's also really good in Wedding Crashers with Owen Wilson. It's fantastic. I love it. But yeah, he's one of those actors. I think he's kind of underappreciated for me a little bit. But I think for me, Kathy Newton, for the actors who are of like her reason, like her age in the film, her fellow high school companions, like she's head and shoulders above the rest of me. Like acting
Yeah,
performance wise, she stands out on her own in that regard for sure.
I think absolutely. And in sort of the back half of the film, they managed to capture the butcher inside Millie's body. And my brother sort of brought this up, and I sort of brought up a similar complaint when we talked about tropes that we don't enjoy, in the episode where we discussed the Wilhelm scream, which you can check out now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
I sort of mentioned that I don't like when, adversaries are captured but not killed. And here I sort of had a similar issue where they tie the butcher up with one rope.
Yeah,
This is a serial killer.
yeah.
Go overboard. This
Go
is the time
overboard.
to be a bit excessive.
Exactly, 100%. Like if I had a serial killer in my house, best believe I'm tying him up with barbed wire or whatever, or like multiple bits of rope. I mean, the fact like it's he's just tied just his hands behind the chair. Like he's not even like his legs aren't even wrapped to the chair or anything. It's just he's free
Yeah.
to go pretty much. But yeah,
And
I
they
mean,
didn't even knock him out.
yeah, they didn't even knock him out for sure. And I think the fact that Catherine Newton's performance is so menacing as well, you still feel that sense of fear, even if the killer's not Vince Vaughn. Do you know what I mean? So it's just
Mm.
really good stuff.
I mean, the plan is to, is for, Millie in the butcher's body to then stab her own body. So I mean, I feel like, what one knock over the head, at least, in movie universe, the idea where a knock on the head does no damage,
Yeah,
I feel like go for it.
yeah, hundred
And
percent.
their plan in this film is to break into the police station, steal back the knife, and then Millie is able to stab the butcher and switch bodies again. And I think if you really don't want Millie spotted by the police, maybe have her guard the butcher rather than take her to the station, full of police.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
hundred
I
percent.
because it's just the friend going in and then saying, oh, I've seen the butcher round the back, so she can then steal the knife. There was never a plan for Millie to be involved to go in to do anything. So really, that scene's just orchestrated for the terribly awkward kiss scene. But I feel like you would have your tallest, strongest person stay with the butcher. You would think.
Yeah, you would think so, because there's no reason for her to be in the police station anyway. Because to be honest, so and the thing about the butcher is I find quite funny, and it's a classic serial killer trope in movies, isn't it? Where the people are running, the victims are running away, but the serial killer calmly stalks his prey. To quote CinemaSins, I mean that is just evident in this movie. Like I'm amazed he kills as many people as he did at the start, because he's just
Yeah.
He's just. It really annoys me actually in serial killer movies when the killer just strolls along. Like show a bit of urgency to your crimes. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but I feel like here it's sort of nicely subverted, at least in the attack on Millie, because she's in this big mascot costume and she's sort of just waddling,
Yeah,
like
yeah, that's true.
she's meant to be
Yeah,
running for her life, and
yeah,
she's just sort of
it's a good point.
going on a wee
Yeah, for
waddle.
sure, for
And
sure.
I've briefly mentioned the kiss scene in the car, and it is one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever seen.
It's
I
very
was
awkward.
watching this with my brother, and it's like several minutes long, and I was just like, what is going on here? Like, it's not really appropriate to do that in someone else's body, which we didn't
It's the
really
Wonder Woman
criticize
scenario.
enough in. Yeah, I was gonna say we didn't really criticize enough in Wonder Woman 1984, but it's because the mechanics of that are so unclear. Here it is, their consciousness have switched bodies, so that is really that person's body. But in Wonder Woman 1984, it's so poorly explained that you could just say he physically changed the person's body biologically to now match his, and he's now only visibly the other guy to other people, but the body is physically his. So I feel like
Yeah.
there is room there because it was so poorly explained.
Yes.
Here, it's very clearly not appropriate to do that. But the circumstances, you may not have you may not have time to assess the ethics of the situation based on the circumstances. But I feel like if they just this was really where I was talking about, where they don't really know where the line is with the joke, because it's obviously like a visual gag, but I feel like them being in the backseat of the car getting very close to each other, that's the joke really. So you don't need the kiss. I
Don't.
feel like
Yeah.
if it had just
Yeah.
been the build
Pushed
up,
a bit too
sorry,
far.
the
Yeah.
build up and not the kiss, it would have remained funny without the what are they doing here? Like, because
It
I
goes
feel
on
like
too
any
long.
time that you
Yeah.
have the audience ask themselves uncomfortable questions, you're probably letting yourself down.
I agree. It's probably it's clear to say. I think maybe at the end of the film when obviously the butcher fakes his death and he sort of says to Millie, oh like I think he says something along the lines when I was in your head like and you like you're sad about your dead dad or something. So clearly some degree of the serial killer
Mm.
must be in his own body's head while Millie is in his body. That didn't make sense, but like do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
I guess they've like swapped souls but not brains, so the brain, like the knowledge is still there.
yeah, it's so strange. The scene goes on way too long. It felt so out of place. I was not a big fan.
I mean, I think it maybe just comes as sort of a like a what do you even mean, because Millie's not saying the same thing about the butcher, but I think that's maybe because he seems to not feel anything,
Hmm.
so I guess she wouldn't understand,
That's
like,
true. Yeah,
there's just a coldness there that maybe she didn't reciprocate.
potentially.
And but by the end, the butcher's stolen the knife because he doesn't want Millie to return to her own body. But quite honestly, I don't know why the butcher would want Millie's body anyway. She's faster, but far weaker, and sort of the anonymity of this new identity wouldn't last very long.
It's a really good
Because of the
point.
killing spree, seen in the film. If you just killed off the butcher and then he continued to kill in her body, then I feel like the anonymity's gone very quickly.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. It expires very, very quickly, as you put it. And I don't know. I thought the film was potentially going to end with just when the police shoot him, that he's dead. But the film
Yeah.
continues on where he fakes his death and then ends up attacking the family. So I thought that was an interesting development. I'm not sure if I quite liked it there. I'm not
No.
convinced. It wasn't. I think it maybe went on a bit too long there.
Yeah, for me, the final competition in the house felt entirely unnecessary. Like the apparent ending for me was satisfying enough, and sort of the anticlimax of the butcher's death, I think, was better and funnier than Millie being responsible, because she is this sweet, innocent person. She's meant to be the complete antithesis to the butcher, and
Hmm.
of course, she was only protecting her family. But do you feel that that's potentially, where he mentioned that he could feel what she was feeling inside his body? Do you think it's the she's sort of permanently damaged from him being in her body for so long that she has
It's an
a bit more of
interesting
a
point.
killer instinct now?
It's a
Because she
really good
kind of,
question.
like, because she stabs him with a chair leg very violently, and then
Kicks him.
she's kind of half smiles.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's going to be interesting. Like, if this movie has a sequel, will they develop that? Because I think it's a really smart point you've mentioned there, dude. To be honest with you, and I think the film would probably should have ended with just him dead in the back of an ambulance, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? I think it would have been a much better idea, and it kind of, I don't know, it kind of made me think that the whole development of the film was to suggest that no matter whose body she's in, that Catherine Newton's character Millie is not a killer, but by the end she just is. I know it was in self defense, but like do you know what I mean? It was maybe that was the point of it. I'm not too sure, but I don't know. I think it
Yeah,
felt
but
out of
she didn't
place.
seem to hesitate too hard,
Yeah,
did she?
I know. Would you like to see a sequel though?
I would really like to see a sequel, but I think the final competition of the house pretty much closes the door on Vince Vaughn. I think if they return, if he returned, I'd be happy, but I'd be rolling my eyes. And I really don't see how you make a successful sequel without him, especially because he probably has 60% of the screen time in this film. I think he is the lifeblood of the entire film.
Agreed.
But I think with a compelling enough narrative, I'm sure it could still be good. And I feel like there's been a Happy Death Day crossover teased by the director, because he directed both films,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I do think that is potentially the next logical step, to produce like a high quality film. Because Happy Death Day to you, which you haven't seen just yet, right? Am I right?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it sets up sort of future films, but it isn't really good enough to like encourage me to want to see it. There is a third film in active development, but I think a crossover film in this sort of shared universe, in sort of a glass style fusion of
Yeah,
universes,
yeah, it's a good shout.
I think that's really the more interesting place to go, and
Hmm.
that film involves time manipulation, and here this involves body swapping. So I think a mixture of those two,
Yeah.
where you cross the two genres, sounds very compelling.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility for it to do that. I think that would be a really smart move. It would be very, very unique as well for like a horror sort of slasher comedy, so to speak, to create that universe. So I think the characters of Tree and Happy Death Day and Millie actually would blend together quite nicely. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any remarks on the film, but anything from yourself?
Nothing further on me. So Matthew, for this being a new release, I would like to hear, would you mark this a massive hit or a piece of shit?
It's got to be a massive hit, man. I was really surprised by this film. I thought it was really tonally consistent. I thought, the pacing was really good. Actually, I was really entertained throughout, and it was a really surprising film. Actually, very funny in parts. There is a few scenes that don't fit in there, to be honest. But that being said, Vince Vaughn, one of my faves, of course, and Catherine Newton really surprised me. So yeah, massive hit and probably like an 8 out of 10. What about yourself?
Awesome. Yeah, my one critique would be, I really don't think they know where the line is with their jokes. There's two or
Yeah,
three instances where it just steered into uncomfortable, which when half of the genre when half of the genre that you're trying to make here, horror comedy, sort of falls down a little bit.
hmm,
It's maybe a bit disappointing.
yeah,
But I think the performances are incredible. Catherine Newton is so much better than I expected. She effectively portrays this menacing sociopath. So
she
I
does. She
absolutely
does.
loved her in the film. Vince Vaughn is funny in a way that I've never seen before. And I think that this film is effortlessly funny, even when they maybe steer a little too far. Because the scene in the car is funny. It
It is.
just
Yeah.
by the end, as soon as they're kissing, you're like, this is a 18-year-old boy kissing middle-aged Vince Vaughn. Where you're just like, okay, this
Yeah.
has gone on too long here.
Yeah. I know.
So I,
I
I
know.
liked everything aside from that, apart from a few misplaced scenes, as you said. So I definitely agree. Massive hit. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I was like fixed to the screen. I had no issues with it. I was never distracted. I would agree on an 8, maybe an 8.5. It's
Lovely.
again where you want to rate a film on its individual merit, but it's kind of difficult knowing what else you've rated, that same score. If I'm like, I've
Yeah.
rated this other film 8.5, can I really call Freaky, an
Hmm.
8.5? But I'd probably go with a solid 8.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, have there been times, I'm pretty sure I rated Gone with the Wind as a 0 or a 1 out of 10, which I think is perfectly fair. But, I really think that we're probably a lot of the time too generous with our reviews. Like I would say
I
we're
certainly am.
rarely
Yeah.
mean. I feel like I go a little too far because I mean we have watched some absolute trash, and I feel like we definitely like the Disney package films. I think we give like 3s out of 10s or something because at least the music was sometimes okay. But we've definitely rated a lot of stuff too high.
Yeah, I know I certainly have for sure. Like I look back at our first episode with the MCU, and I think I gave some of the films. I think when you compare it to Freaky, like an 8.5, like an 8.5 is probably one of my higher ratings in the MCU or the
Hmm.
DCU podcast. So I think I don't know. I think when I look at this film, it's just how you feel at the time. Maybe if I rewatch it in a year or two, I might feel differently. But that being said, at this moment, I thought it was a real blast, a really enjoyable horror slasher film, to be honest. And
Yeah.
but yeah, um, I will add this. We will add this to our horror playlist as well. If you want to check out, our classic horror episode, we've done. What else have we done? We've done New Mutants as well, and like a Zombieland, which is sort of quite similar tonally to this film. So yeah,
Yeah, and our it reviews
it
and
reviews
the
as
the
well.
Exorcist and the
Yes,
Omen,
yes,
making
yes,
classic horror.
yeah, yeah. So we've done quite a few horror films, and this is another one to add to the list. So hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned later on this week on the channel as well for a lot of videos coming up. And yeah, thanks so much for today, Callum, for introducing me to another movie. Really
Thank you.
appreciate that. And yeah, hope you guys are all safe and well. Hope your family and friends are all safe and well. Take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.